one. Okay, John, do we have anybody with us electronically? No. What? Oh, right, we have 1 minute. Everybody ready? Okay. Guess we can go ahead and start it now. All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Are there any announcements? And John, we don't have anybody with us electronically, correct? That's correct. Okay, thank you, sir. All right, not hearing any. I'd like to move to approve the agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
So moved and seconded.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. That's unanimous. Let's move on to the public forum. Anybody wishing to speak?
I was looking at Josh.
Nope. He just wants to go play at the Apostle Islands. You guys are gonna jet ski or something, right? Yeah, okay.
The pump out you on the way. Oh, wait.
Right on. All right, not hearing anything on that. We're gonna move to the consent calendar. Now, since we are at the consent calendar, I went to pull the draft meeting minutes. I just have a quick item on that. And, I don't really have anything. I've got some questions about the treasurer's report, but I think I can handle that afterwards. Yes, sir. What do you got?
Could we pull F just for a fairly brief discussion? Comments?
Without a doubt, please. Yes, let's do that. Very good. So we're going to pull F and the draft minutes. So I would like to make a motion to approve items B, C, D, E, and G. I have a second.
Second.
So moved and seconded.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Okay, that is approved. So let's go to the draft meeting minutes. To sound petty or anything, but on those minutes, line 29, Ray Wyrock. Is his name Rick? Yes. Okay, so let's change that, please. One time at a party, somebody asked me my name and I said Ed, and they said Dave. So I just said, call me Dave the rest of the evening. Anyway, but that's all I have. Now let's move on to item F.
Item F, right. So, I think as presented here, I think it seems sound. It'll be interesting to see kind of more detail or what the county comes back to us. I just want to make some just general higher level comments. I know that in South Washington, we spent some time wondering what our emerging roles could be in groundwater. And I also observed that groundwater conservation is becoming an increasing challenge in a number of areas around the state. As you know, it's from basically conserving groundwater levels. You know, the closest one was DNR has about 6 groundwater management areas, and the closest one to us is the Northeast. They don't like calling it Lake Bear Lake, but that's what it is. So I'm going to just suggest that we give a fair bit of thought to how and why we get involved with emerging groundwater issues, even above and beyond PFAS.
Okay.
Because they could become significant, and I think we need to be thoughtful about what our role might be. And again, we'll see what comes back from the county on what they think our specific roles might be as well in their plan.
Okay.
So just some general commentary.
All right. So noted. Now, with regards to your commentary, do you have any further comments about the letter that we are proposing?
I think it's fine. Again, we we didn't get to see some of the details, but
Right.
as far as the full plan, but, no, I trust, Greg's judgment in this, and some of the questions that I had just reading this stuff, he brought up in the letter. Like,
Right.
okay, we need more specifics on it's exactly what you think the Watershed District partner is gonna do to help with some of these challenges.
Okay. The one question I had on that, since we're talking about it, is the use of the word vague. Not a problem. Does everybody feel comfortable with that? Section 2.3, page 30. The draft groundwater plan is vague regarding the specifics of implementation. I like the way, Greg is very technical and I appreciate that very much. So they will put their good people on that to help explain that. I just wanted to make note of that word. Really for my curiosity than judging the use of it. So if anybody has anything beyond that, then good. Yes, sir.
I would comment that, chloride has been mentioned a couple of times in the report. I kept thinking about, this is a 10-year plan, and what's going to happen in 10 years on chloride. It might be worthwhile having a little bit more in terms of, in that kind of time frame. I think the design impacts would probably be worthwhile mentioning, at least in terms of, impacts on groundwater.
Our engineer is making a note of that, and how do we follow up on that, John? If I could ask you.
Mr. President, I'll talk with Greg Williams, who reviewed the draft plan, and see if there is discussion about chloride and site design to reduce chlorides.
Mhm.
If not, to update the letter to mention
Mhm.
those comments.
Okay. Thank you.
Good enough?
We have mentioned it, but, expanding it is probably the first. I think it's important.
All right. So we're satisfied with these two items. Would somebody like to make a motion, or shall we make a motion on them separately?
I'm glad of the approval of the letter that's drafted by Greg for the mission of the county.
In addition to the correction on.
Yes, with your suggested, edit as well, yeah.
All right, very good. I will second that motion. It's been moved and seconded.
Aye.
All right,
Aye.
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 It is approved. Very good, gentlemen. Right, move on. Okay. Red path. I want to be very honest about this. Oh no, wait, I'm sorry. There's a treasure report. Okay. Let's start over. Let's go to updates and requests from farmers volunteers. We have nothing, business and reports. Administrator, engineer, infrastructure, conveyance systems, inspection, operation, and maintenance report. Josh, you're on.
Yes.
Sir.
Well, thank you for having me this evening. You got the report that we prepared, back in November, December-ish, but here's a brief summary of it here for you all as well. So, just a short agenda, looking back at what we completed in 2024 in terms of infrastructure and, systems. And then looking ahead into 2025, looking at inspections, maintenance repairs, and operation activities. I'm shooting for 15 to 20 minutes here, give or take. So just to give you a timeline. So start with looking back with a nice little photo of Eagle Point Lake Dam there. So first thing I'll cover is inspection. So a couple years ago, we spent a little bit of time reorganizing and categorizing the different systems that the Watershed District has and grouping them into similar systems. So there's water body outlets and infrastructure. You have a handful of stormwater treatment systems, basins and filters and such. You have some natural conveyance systems. So you have different creeks and just drainage channels throughout the district. And then there are stabilization projects that have been done on those natural drainage systems for the most part. So for the purpose of these inspections that we did some reorganization just to make sure that we're being consistent with how we're inspecting things and what sort of frequencies we're doing it on. So there are some exceptions to all of these rules, as you see with the asterisks, but for the most part, the infrastructure and constructed stormwater treatment systems are inspected annually. We've it's varied over the years throughout the history of the district, but right now we've been doing about every 4 years for the natural systems and then every other year for those stabilization projects. So just to set some of the framework on kind of where we've landed with those, that's where we're at right now. So looking back in 2024, we did inspect all of that infrastructure for your those water body outlets. You can see some of those listed here. There's a few of these where it's actually a rotating triennial inspection, which basically just means parts of Project 1007 and the Olson Lake Estates projects. We're not looking at every manhole every year, but some of them every 3 years, and then the more critical water body outlets and control structures are every year. So that's kind of where we've been over 2024 for infrastructure. For the natural systems, the two systems that were inspected in 2024 were Kells Creek and then a drainage channel, Downs Lake Drainage Channel, which is taking some of the drainage from near the airport down towards Downs Lake. There was some inquiries about that from the county in recent years, and so we did go and inspect that to take a look at it. And then there's a few select sites. So where we've seen some significant erosion issues, we've done and monitored those on more of an annual basis. And so there's a few select sites within a couple of these systems that we are inspecting and monitoring regularly as well. Then for constructed stabilization projects, generally speaking, we've divided it in half. So north of 94 is generally going to be inspected on the even years, south of 94 on the odd years. There's some exceptions for that too. We did some stabilization repair projects this year on some of them towards the bottom here, those Valley Creek upstream and downstream. So we were out there not formally just to inspect it, but we were out there because of projects. And so we saw the sites this year. So that's where we've been in terms of inspections. Maintenance from this year, the big project that we took on was the Valley Creek stabilization repairs. So M&L did that project. That's the top photo there. Roughly July through November for the majority of that work. There is some continued work, which I'll talk about here in a few minutes, but that was one of the bigger projects taken on this year, repairing some of the previous stabilization projects that were done back in 2008. They were in pretty good shape, but a few spot repairs to some of the things. And then there's some other maintenance work. So some tree removals along Raleigh Creek, specifically there's a portion of Raleigh Creek that is used as conveyance for part of Project 1007. So more of a critical piece of that creek. So cleared out some debris that was causing some dams and some down trees through there. In November, Velo Excavating did some of the annual mowing that they do at some of the channels and at the rest area pond dam along 94. And then in November, we worked with Res LLC to do a controlled burn and some vegetation maintenance at Oak Green Avenue Infiltration Basin, which is down in Afton, just north of Valley Creek, kind of up the bluff. So that was some of the maintenance work that occurred. And then some of the operation activities. So we helped you with just updating and maintaining the web map. There's some new LiDAR that was flown in 2022 that has been added to that web map now. We're routinely updating it with updated parcel data as that becomes available from the county and updated additional permit locations. We had a couple of hydrologic boundary changes, which I think happens periodically, but some slightly more significant ones down in the Kells Creek, Sweet Hill area that were identified that we've made some updates on, and then some just routine maintenance of the web map. Similarly, the Gopher State One Call locating program, we continue to administer that. There were 500 requests for tickets that were in the vicinity of Valley Branch infrastructure, which means that I get an email about it and have to review it. This year, there was 5 of those that were just non-excavation, but they wanted to know where infrastructure was for potentially a design project or something like that. So we provided maps in 5 cases, and then 22 times we were out marking the infrastructure. So roughly twice a month, give or take, for how often we had staff out there doing that. And then lastly, there was one individual who, David Hartwell, I believe, who used the beaver cost share removal program this year for his property on Valley Creek. Yeah.
So just a quick question on updating a hydrologic boundary, does that happen because the new LiDAR data is better than the existing data?
President Sherman and Minders, it was not actually about the LiDAR as much. The southern end of the watershed district was added in 2008, I believe. And there's a couple of spots where there's some drainage channels along St. Croix Trail that were believed to drain into Kells Creek, at least based on the information that was given to the district at that time. And it's just consistently been considered part of Kells Creek. As we've done some of our field inspections, we identified that this particular drainage area actually just goes directly to the St. Croix. And so it's relatively minor, but just adjusted the boundary on that for consistency across platforms.
Thank you.
So that is generally my summary of looking back on 2024. Any other questions on that? Otherwise, I'll point us forward.
The other managers have a question regarding any of those?
Not so far.
Looking
So,
good?
yeah.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
So looking forward, again, generally, our plan is to keep proceeding with this approach for the frequency of inspections, which really means that for the infrastructure, we'll be looking at all of those this year, following that same inspection approach and evaluating the condition of that. For the natural systems, the main system that we'll be looking at in 2025 is Valley Creek. One of the largest, drainage area, and if you combine all of the creek and all of the ravines, we'll be planning to look at those and evaluate the condition, look for issues or erosion that could potentially be addressed. And then there's a few, significant erosion sites within a couple of these other systems that we'll continue to monitor. For constructed stabilization projects, now that we're moving into an odd year, we'll generally be looking at everything south of 94. So a lot of these are previous projects along the Valley Creek or Fells Creek creeks or ravines, I guess they're tributary ravines. So we'll be going and looking at those, checking for the condition of that, and if there's any erosion occurring or vegetation concerns, things like that. The one exception there, you can see DeMontreville Ravine, that also takes some drainage. That's part of Project 1007. So we tend to look at that on an annual basis as well, just because of significance within the drainages of the district. For maintenance then, within water body outlets and infrastructure, there's really just maintenance that we have for Project 1007. So all of the other systems seem to be in good condition and no concerns. If you look at this list in detail, you may recognize some of these things. You approved a handful of these at the December meeting. A few of them are things that are still ongoing and in progress. So I don't think there's any huge surprises here, but just some maintenance that's been identified during inspections or other time out in the field. Some tree removals, some repairs and replacement infrastructure, things like that. For the stormwater treatment systems, there's two things that we're recommending. So with the Silver Lake spent line filter, we've been evaluating the effectiveness of that filter and generally found it to be in pretty good condition. Yeah, go ahead.
Very quickly, that's on the north side of the lake,
Yes.
next to the road?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
So we've been evaluating that. We had a couple wet years, which seemed to a little bit over inundate that filter. And so we pulled back some of the water that gets into that. Now we've had a couple of dry years. And so there's a little bit of a balancing act here. And so I don't have a ton of budget here, but we want to have our staff go out and try to adjust that a little bit and just continue to fine tune it to maximize our treatment efficiency for that. For the Silver Lake Bioretention Basin, so that's the 14 there, so on the southwest side of the lake. The district has a memorandum of understanding with the city of North St. Paul. So we inspect it and provide recommendations to North St. Paul, but they will take care of the maintenance work is the agreement there. So there's no cost to the district for that, but something we'll share with them and have them take care of these maintenance items. So
Just to comment on that part of it, I noticed there's a trail, the informal trail that kind of cuts across the bioretention basin in a narrow area. And I'm wondering if that has any impact on the effectiveness of the bioretention. And then if there is it reasonable to expect or comment to or St. Paul about maybe adding some stepping stones or something?
Is it a trail through the basin?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's a shortcut.
Sure. I will, I didn't go out and look at this one personally this year, so I'll talk with our staff that were out there and get a sense from them what they think. Based on what their observations were from being on the field, I'll talk to them and we'll see if that's worth commenting to North St. Paul as well.
Thank you.
Keep moving then. So for the natural conveyance systems, there's a couple of slides here. So within the Barney Creek system, there's some erosion that we've observed over the last few years that I think is worthy of doing some sort of a project stabilization here. We've done some work over the last year or so, reaching out to the property owner, having some conversations. And the initial reaction from the property owner was not wanting to have any sort of an easement on his property from the district. So that can be a little bit of a project killer. We had some additional conversations a little bit later in the year and talked with our attorneys a bit, and there could be some way of still moving forward with the project. There's a conservation easement on the land, and perhaps we could find a way to be able to still move forward with some sort of memorandum of understanding or something like that. So our thought right now is to continue to try to pursue some sort of a project here, coming up with some pretty high level concept designs to be able to share with the property owner to get hopefully convince them of the value of a project like this, and then see if there's a way to move forward with protecting the creek, stabilizing the creek, but also having the proper legal protections in place so that it doesn't get removed in the future, kind of thing. So that's what we're recommending for the Barney Creek system. The one other one is within Kells Creek. Again, it's a similar story here. We've been having some initial conversations with some of the property owners. This one has 6 or 7 property owners, I think, that we're coordinating with, but sent out some initial letters and got a little bit of feedback, but wanting to, again, continue to pursue a project here. So some initial concept designs would help benefit those efforts in communicating with property owners. There's an HOA and city and some other private properties. So like to kind of continue to pursue a project here. I will say for both of these, if we do move forward with an actual stabilization project, we'd likely come back to you with that question or action and have figure out where that might make the most sense to proceed. It's probably more of a water quality improvement project versus a maintenance O&M type thing. So likely a different budget is my hunch. But when we get to that point, I think we bring it back and get your considerations and or blessing on that. So that's what we're looking at for Kells Creek. And then in constructed stabilization projects, this is probably one of the simpler ones, but we worked with MNL to do those stabilization repairs this summer, and they are on contract for the next couple of years to continue to do some vegetation maintenance. There's a controlled burn that we were hoping to get done this fall, but they just didn't quite ever have the conditions they needed for that. So that'll be in the spring, and then seeding and vegetation management for the next couple of years. The last thing here is just the general operation things. So continuing with some of the web map updating, you'll see that number is a little bit higher than it's been in the past. The hosting platform that is used for the web map is being sunsetted at the end of 2025. So we'll be transitioning into a different hosting platform. A little bit more work this year to make that transition, but we have some people that are on board to help with that. And then it's some of the more routine stuff that we have on a yearly basis for the permit inspection reporting stuff that Jeff uses, and beaver cost share removal, some of those other typical things.
On item 26.
Yep.
As WCD submit inspection reports, projects with more than $5,000 Valley Branch funding, correct?
Correct. Yep.
I only saw one from Washington County, nothing from Ramsey County, even though there are some $5,000 plus projects that were done in Ramsey County.
I don't know for sure, offhand. I don't know if John would know offhand, but if there's any in Ramsey County that were more than $5,000.
There
Well, we
was
visited
specific-
some on the summer tour up on at Century College campus. It's the Ramsey County side, and Valley Branch contributed more than 5,000, like that. I don't remember the number.
Sure.
But we haven't received any reports on that.
Mhm. There's also one on Silver Lake on the east side.
That's right.
So be nice to get a report from Ramsey County. Maybe they need a little tweaking or something.
And what I recall is Ramsey, at that time, Ramsey Conservation District was involved with the one at Silver Lake, but the one at Century College, or the series at Century College, they were all done by a private engineering firm, and the Conservation District wasn't too involved with those.
Mhm.
But we can reach out to Ramsey County and ask them to reach out to Century College, I guess, to see if they're monitoring those practices and how they're doing.
Thank you.
Did you have any other question on that piece of it or?
No, sir.
Okay.
Keep going.
I don't have as much in this presentation on those, but those are included in the report.
Right.
And we coordinate with the conservation district regularly to ask them to make sure they're getting all of those done, so. All right, well, my overall summary here is, recommend continuing to direct the conservation district to submit those inspection reports, and I think we can add in the Ramsey County to there as well, and make a note of that. Continue to inspect and report on, so this year will be 22 of the systems, for an estimated cost of 92,000. Perform all the high priority maintenance items, so those are the ones I went through briefly, albeit, but, those high priority maintenance items for a cost of 179,000. I will note that this is a bit of a lower total cost for high priority maintenance items than what we've brought to you for the last few years. So we've been more in the 250 to 350 range over the last few years, and I think what we're seeing is we've tackled a lot of the bigger things that we've seen within the district, and generally your investment in maintenance of your infrastructure is paying off. So I think that's a good thing. It's a lower number this year, but I think it's a good thing to see is that, there's less and less high priority, we need to get this done stuff, and we're seeing the infrastructure is in generally good condition. So just some commentary on that. The third bullet then is just, I did the math for you. So the sum of those two is 271 for 2025. And I'll note your budget for next year is $500,000. So that does leave another $229,000 that you could use to do some additional stuff, which I can touch on here, or if you wanted to reallocate it to other, projects or investments in the district, that's certainly an option too, but just wanted to have that note. So I will share, I think the one medium priority task that we have on the list here is to do some maintenance of portions of Project 1007 and some of the conveyance channels between Horseshoe Lake and I-94. We've had this on here for a few years, and with some of the challenges of this site is there's pretty high groundwater in a lot of it. It's within portions of the plume of the PFAS contamination, and so any sediment removal likely is contaminated soil, which tends to be pretty expensive. And it is a lot of channels. I think it's a little over half a mile of channels, so it's quite a bit. They're heavily overgrown. So there's some challenges here. And so we've done some initial cost estimating and expect this to be somewhere in the order of $550,000 for all of engineering and design construction type stuff. So that's more than you have available for next year. But one thing you could consider is trying to kind of stagger this over a couple of years. We could do some of the design work, do some of the environmental investigations, even preparing plans and specifications, things like that, and get it potentially even bid in 2025, where a contractor could then do the project in 2026, something like that. So it's kind of up for, this is a little bit for you to decide how you want to use your budget for next year, but this is something we could consider doing, or again, could reallocate it to other priorities.
Very quickly, not to waste your time, but I have something on cattail removal, what's the most efficient way that we generally go about this? I've done the caveman way, right? Just yank them out.
Yeah, President Trent, I think in this case, it likely would just be an excavator, some mechanical
Oh,
removal,
okay,
digging it out along with the sediment. And then, as of right now, this cost does assume we would dispose of that material. There's some considerations or some discussions we've had internally about whether you'd be able to spoil material on the banks. So that's a possibility. It would make this a less expensive project, but
right.
right now, our expectation is that you dispose of that. I think it's-
Very good, sir. Don, and then, Rick, go ahead.
Well, the cattail's really problematic. I mean, do they really obstruct flow to
Yeah.
possible create a local flooding situation or?
Yeah, it's hard to say with certainty one way or another. I think there's definitely some flow obstruction, just as you look at that drainage channel compared to the others. There's a lot of sediment that has built up. We did, some initial investigation into some of that. So my expectation is at least in some of the flow events, you have quite a bit more, slower flows through there, just inhibiting some of the flow. Whether it's a huge problem, it's a little bit hard to say. I think part of that is why it's been more of a medium priority task. You get better flows through there without the cattails certainly, but it hasn't been the highest priority on the list.
I mean, assuming they're not problematic like hydrants, they also provide habitat for
Yeah.
some critters
Yeah.
too.
And I heard you can eat them. Oh, yeah, but not where we go, not there. Rick?
Well,
sir?
just to follow up on something that Don mentioned, would the impact be different under, a heavy water flow conditions? Would that be more of an issue then, or?
I think to an extent it could be. So in terms of just hydraulics of channels, the rougher the surface of the channel is, the less flow that can be conveyed through there. So I think there's some level of less flow is able to move through those channels because of the cattails. And it's very thick. It's not easy to walk through by any means. So but as the channel rises, water would eventually also get over the top of those and be able to still move to some extent. So again, it's not an exact answer in this case.
Okay. Now, the question that I had is concerning PFAS. You talked about having to dispose of soils that are removed from maintenance projects. What is going on in terms of staff safety? What changes have been implemented to make sure that bar staff and contractor staff and stuff are safe in conditions as they're working in those areas?
Sure, it's a great question. For bars staff, for inspections, for the most part, we're not in the water. We're typically not in the channel. We're often walking on the banks. And then all of our staff were just are avoiding it. Typically, where you see the highest concentrations is the bubbles. And so just like we did that tour of the fractionator or whatever it was called.
Oh, fractionator.
Yeah, and so that they produce those bubbles within that. So we do talk with all of our field staff to avoid any bubbles that you might see on the surface. For a contractor, I think typically we leave safety plans up to the contractor to keep their own staff safe. So it would be up to them on how they want to deal with that. I will say that even in cases where there's not PFAS, most stormwater like pond cleanouts and things like that are still typically considered contaminated soils. We do testing on them, but a lot of them end up being contaminated soils based on elevated levels of different metals or different things like that. So it's not uncommon to have to dispose of those in some sort of a landfill. PFAS is a little bit still of that newer emerging on the within that stormwater world and such. So
Yeah, so they would follow MPCA protocol and all that.
Yeah.
Mr. Brock?
Yeah, my question gets at what we were just talking about, but where would a
appropriate disposal site for
Yeah.
PFAS contaminated soil be?
To be honest, I don't know offhand.
Okay.
I think that's something we would be looking into. There's different landfills that take different materials, so there's construction debris landfills. There's other ones that will take other contaminated soils, but you have to just provide the documentation. I guess I haven't looked into it at this point, but we have a lot of PFAS experts at BAR, so I assume we'd be able to sort that out, but I haven't looked into it yet.
I figured they cook that stuff.
Given all the questions surrounding the PFAS on that project, I guess I would hope that maybe this year as a minimum, we would do some testing of the sediment. And just find out what it is we're dealing with. That way helps you for planning and that sort of thing. But as a minimum, find out what we have.
That's a good idea. We need to do that. I think we need to do that. You better be in the know. Very good. Okay.
So I guess the last slide, and I think you have the cover memo likely from last time with those action items. But yeah, this is kind of that summary.
Okay. Do any gentlemen have any further questions or commentary on that? Yes, sir.
One final question, concerning the Washington County and Ramsey County inspections, is that, well, Washington County, we have our agreement with them. Do we reimburse them for their time for those inspections, or is this something we're asking them to do, without any reimbursement? And it's just part of their job. I'm just curious.
Yeah. So the work that Washington County does is separate from this overall O&M. I include it just because it's some similar work. But I do not get as involved in that, so I'm gonna point to John. I do believe they get paid, but I don't know the agreement.
President Marchand, Manager Brock, yes, it's all included in their overall contract that
Okay.
you just approved,
Right,
At last meeting.
55,000, yeah.
but that's a good reminder. Because there's typically little activity in Ramsey County. It's a year-to-year contract, and I think our contract is expired, so I'll reach out to the Ramsey County contact on the BMP cost share program through White Eagle there and bring that back to the managers.
Okay.
Excellent. Any further questions or comments? All right. Would somebody like to make a motion?
I will make a motion
Okay.
to authorize BAR to monitor the Valley Branch Watershed District systems at the frequency listed in table 8-1 of the report for a total estimated cost of $92,000. Also authorize BAR to obtain bids for the completion of all high priority maintenance activities, table 8-2, for a total estimated maintenance cost of $179,000. Require Washington Conservation District and Ramsey Conservation District to submit annual inspection reports on all projects that Valley Branch Watershed District supported contributions of $5,000 or more. And finally, well, that's a consider. We didn't really
We don't
talk
have a
about
motion
D,
on
but
that.
I will add D. I will
Okay,
add
yes,
item D.
Mhm.
To conduct environmental sediment, testing of the sediment in that,
Excellent.
that channel, if
Yes,
that's
sir.
appropriate.
Okay.
I'll make that for my D item.
How does that sit with you, Counselor?
Fine.
Second. Okay. We have a motion. We have a second. It's been moved and seconded.
Aye.
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 Gentlemen, we are good to go.
Thank you for having me.
Josh, you're hitting on.
I
all
mentioned to Ed, I gotta sneak
Yes.
out early, so.
Yeah, we know.
Good to see you all.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Josh.
Hey, Josh,
Rick, I think.
drive carefully,
Thank
please.
you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your presentation.
Yeah.
You're gonna wear a dry suit, right, if you don't know why?
Yes.
Okay. Just saying. All right. Our next item, the website. Okay, now. quite honestly, I'm fairly ignorant on this aspect of what we do here. And my concern is, before we get into this, I'm concerned about bang for our buck. What do we get for the service? Is it, competitive with, what we see with other, entities? Has this been good for us? You know, unfortunately, I haven't stayed abreast of this. I've just kind of pushed it off and now these folks they want to upgrade our site for, what is it, 1,600? And then 1,200, which is up from whatever it is. Okay. All right. Annually for the next 4 years, lock us in. Does anybody have any comments on that?
I had a question on what's an ADA compliant website? Does it have?
So we went through this in the state, and when you put stuff on the web, it has to be done in a way where like vision impaired people can access it appropriately. So
Okay.
there's just technology in the background that provides that. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
Can be, making original documents can be pretty time consuming. So I don't know how they necessarily, if you post a report, like Josh's inspection report to website, I don't know how. If they're saying that they would make that report ADA compliant, so. I think that might need to describe every single photo that's in the report somehow for somebody who's blind.
The themes and layouts where they can.
Right.
I don't remember being when I first heard about it with the state, I thought it was gonna be just a big pain in the neck, but it really wasn't. I think there's even software that kind of automates it, I think.
I would guess there is now. I just recall a report a decade ago being very challenging to make it.
Okay. Anything else from anybody? Because my next question is, I assume we'd have to make a motion on this and provide these people with, a check for this. Is anybody interested in the upgrade, and is the upgrade, is the ADA covered in the upgrade, or is that something that we've been doing all along?
Mr. President, that it's not ADA compliant right now.
Okay,
Is that a requirement for a government agency or municipality?
yeah, good question. That's a very good question. Counselor,
My-
anything?
My understanding is that it is required. Frankly, I just became first aware of this because Carmar was talking about it last night. So I'm thinking someone's hitting all the watershed saying your sites aren't compliant. But beyond that, I don't really know. So I looked up the state of Minnesota digital accessibility standard last night and the statute, but I haven't had time to review it to really be able to tell you what the requirements are. I know state agencies are required and that watersheds are required to comply.
Yeah,
I don't really know who's enforcing. I don't really know the exact standards. So I can give you a general overview, but no details.
yes, but to add to that, it's probably prudent to do it, right?
Yeah.
So that would be all inclusive, et cetera, et cetera. So,
I honestly would have
Yes, sir.
expected a bigger bill than us to do it. I mean, that's.
oh, you think they would? Would that be, would that go
I think
beyond
they're offering to do it for 1,600. That's why I'm reading this right here.
a wheeler dealer?
So, you know, what, the email that I copied and included in your packet is all the information I know. I
Okay.
don't know what the caveats are around the $1,600. I don't know. And I don't know any more detail about this here.
And we've been dealing with these people? Is that who's been,
Yes, Revise has been
revised?
the website host since the upgrade of over a dozen years ago, I think.
Now I want to call Melissa.
When a manager fetcher kind of led that effort.
Yeah, okay. All right. I thought Melissa was handling it up until.
Melissa handled the day-to-day activities, but it was, probably recall, manager fetcher and getting the design of the current website.
Okay, all right, very good. So it sounds good to me.
I mean, we could have John confirm what we're reading here. And
Yeah,
then Susanna
yeah,
can
for tonight.
follow up on the other details related to the legal requirements.
Right, I think, yeah,
Take care
just to
of
make sure, yeah, that we
Take
have,
care of it in 2 weeks.
yeah, okay.
And maybe Revise can get us more detail about what, what they're proposing in terms of the upgrade.
Yeah.
What
Could you ask them that,
materials that
Sean?
are on the
Yeah.
site get handled.
That would be important and in a timely manner so that we don't have any hiccups along the way and we can be compliant as well as thorough in what we have available to the public.
But to be compliant for $1,600, like,
That's
wow, why not?
Yeah, no, I agree. Just to get further details.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I'm all hook, line and sinker on that
Yep.
one. With a treble hook.
Do we get an AI out of this too?
Maybe AI does it all for them.
Skynet. I can't wait for Skynet. Okay, sorry. Do we need to make a motion on this or no, okay. So we will be directing you to follow through and then report ASAP, give us, send us an email and, maybe for next time, counselor.
Mhm.
that
Got
we're
enough.
going- Yes, that we're gonna make we'll have to make a motion to approve that. Are we good? Are we beautiful? Listen. Okay, folks. Thank you very much. Now we'll proceed. to Attorney,
I have nothing.
what? Okay, like
Right,
that.
Mom.
Beautiful. Okay. Inspector is not here. I hope he's in a good place.
He's in California.
What?
Oh,
San Diego or San Francisco or somewhere else, but not San.
San Francisco making its way to LA.
Oh,
Ooh,
ooh,
good luck. Oh my goodness, poor guy. Stay on the 5 and keep going. Yeah. Don't take PCH. Okay, managers, the financial audit with Red Path. Now, forgive my candor, but did everybody take the time to read every single word for this audit? It's standard, it's typical. They do this every year, and personally, I get a little jumpy when we get the bill because it keeps going up. What, like at a rate of 5% or something or more? 10%?
Yeah, about 5%.
About 5%, yeah. Holy cow.
Mhm.
But it needs to be done.
A lot of caveats. in it, too.
Yeah, man, yeah. So they're gonna approach you,
Yes.
you do some signage,
Yep.
and then you bring it back to us, and then we will more or less,
This initiates the process. And then,
okay.
Yeah.
We need a motion for that. It's Torsa. We do, okay. So would you like to make a motion, Rick?
Yes, make a motion to allow the treasurer to sign the letter of engagement with Red Path for annual audit. Yeah.
Very good. I'll second that motion. It's been moved and seconded.
aye,
I,
Aye.
I,
It is approved. Do your thing, Rick.
Got it.
Cool?
Mhm.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Outreach to elected officials. This one's very interesting. I welcome all commentary, but I would like to start this off with a particular need to approach. I've talked to John about this, but I have some background information on my own. These people are busy. We need to have an agenda to see how they could help. And we know that this is, at least as I understand it, a slow process to get what we want, of course, meaning to help us all. Also, it is our policy, just in case anyone is not aware, and not to sound like a bad guy, but if you want to speak, if anybody wants to speak to a legislator they must receive Valley Branch approval. If you want to have a conversation with them, whether it's over cocktails or whatever the need, then by all means. But if you're gonna discuss Valley Branch stuff, that pertains to all of us, then, you need to receive our blessing. Now, if I got that wrong, help me, John, but I think that's a
I
policy.
think what you're saying is if we're going to represent Valley Branch.
Yes, sir.
in a district in official capacity.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Better choice of words. That is exactly what I mean. So with that said, is there anything that anybody would like to say about how we go about this or? Yes, sir. You're in the best position to do this.
Yeah, so I met, South Washington Watershed District has been meeting with all the representatives for the past several weeks.
Okay,
They just met with, Senator John from the Oakville area. John invited me to attend, he's been inviting me to attend the ones that overlap our Watershed District as well, such as Wayne Johnson, and I think I reported last time that I did go to that meeting, and the main thing that we talked to Wayne Johnson about was the emerging chloride issue. And how it's kind of wearing a couple of hats there, because I was wearing the Minnesota Watersheds hat too, because Minnesota Watersheds has established chlorides as one of the priorities for the coming legislative session.
good.
So I, I would encourage us to just try to schedule just some of these informal meetings. Either at their, that Wayne Johnson was at where South Washington meets, has their meetings. They have their offices over at the Woodbury Public Works Building. And I know when they met with Senator Young, it was at his office.
Yeah,
He got called out, but he met, quite often they go and end up meeting with their staff. So, as described here, and as Minnesota Watershed's new lobbyist suggests, I think, even though it takes time and resources, I think face-to-face is a good thing to do. But you're right, Ed, you want to be efficient, you don't want to waste anybody's time, of course, so I think if we do it, it'd be nice to have like a little one pager. Or maybe a double-sided thing saying, this is Valley Branch Watershed District. And this is how we operate, and these are our outstanding issues that we've been working on either in the recent years, such as landlocked basins, or in the coming years. So, and that we can reinforce the message about chlorides and all coming forward as a key issue, a key new contaminant that the state really needs to start to develop policy on. So.
very good. And I would like to, we can talk about this, John, when we have our meeting, but, meet with, Commissioner Cox so that she can get up to speed with some of the things we're doing, to get to know her personally and to, understand what her desires might be or how to work with us, collectively. And, at the federal level, if anybody wants to approach, Ms. McCollum, let us know
Yeah, I don't,
what you want to do if that's an issue.
yeah. The past experience, we haven't gone to the federal level. It's not to say that we couldn't, but you could reserve that level for something major that comes up where you might need to, or it might rise to that level.
Right.
I think we spoke to one of her staff when we were looking at the, the landlocked basin issue. And it was in the middle of flooding and stuff.
Okay.
And one of the options on the table was infrastructure. And would have been real key there.
Yeah,
And also Senator Seeberger. I met her once. And again, because of what we've said earlier, that we will have to have some meat on what we want to discuss. before we, talk to them about any of these sorts of things.
That would be real nice for me to be able to give to Commissioner Miller, who's new at Ramsey County for
Commissioner Miller, okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
that.
because they've got a little piece. Yeah,
I was thinking of just floating a casual email to the new commissioner, Courtney Cox, just saying hello and calling about the watershed district. Then I looked at the map and I didn't realize her district covers all of us except for Rick. So, yeah, so I'd be game to,
yes, sir.
join in
Down with
that,
her, yes.
casual meeting to,
That's my intention.
Yeah.
We've done this with Commissioner Creasel, Miron, and we can possibly set up with something him or both of them at their convenience, of course. So that's a thought, and we'll get some teeth into that and figure how we go about doing that, and of course have some items to present to them. But this can be done through brainstorming, emails, and what we do. It's just a suggestion at this point.
and one more thing.
Yes, sir.
The day at the Capitol is Minnesota Watersheds event, and that's in mid-February. Maddie Bone just sent out a notice,
Right.
registration for that is open. And so that is,
Serving lunch too.
yeah. Be my calendar here, the 19th and 20th, so 19th in the evening, there's a reception. And I invite basically all of the representatives and senators that from all around the state that have
Right.
watershed districts of WMOs. Some years it's really good and there's good attendance, and some years there isn't. But the next day is go to the Capitol and go to their offices, in which case we would contact the ones that we really want to talk to and say, hey, it's day at the Capitol for Minnesota Watersheds. Do you have any time where we could come to your office and sit down, and then we can hand them the one pager saying this is Valley Branch Watershed District. So
So today's the 9th.
this is mid-February when it happens.
Oh, mid-February. Okay, we got time. Okay.
Yeah, 19th
I
and
was thinking-
20th, so,
January, oh my goodness.
yeah.
Okay. So we can follow up on that, and perhaps you'd like to spearhead that, sir.
I'm sorry.
You'd like to spearhead that. You
Um,
might have something, and then we can talk to John about a particular agenda item.
Mr. President, I did print off the email and it's in front of you tonight.
Right.
so,
And so Maddie has asked that register for it securely, so I guess if you can make a decision tonight, fantastic, or if you just want to wait till 2 weeks from tonight, we can.
I'm all,
Let me know.
I don't know how you gentlemen
I
feel
can
about
register
that.
everybody that would like to attend.
Yeah.
well, I mean, I'd be happy to send something that Ed could send to our elected legislators and tell them about the day of the Capitol, the reception the night before. I'll get a hold of Maddie Bone and see if she has any canned language that we can use.
Right.
And then you can send that, and then we have to follow up with their staff and see if they can schedule time in their office on the 20th. So,
Something could work. Yeah. We'll take a stab at it. And then put off registration until the last minute sort of thing, unless you gentlemen want to do that sooner. I'm not for that, but
And this is when we,
yes. Okay.
Wait until the next meeting.
Okay. So we've discussed the topic at this point. John, you have some information. Mr. Brock, please.
Just one other quick side issue, considering the high amount of turnover in the Baytown Township Board, I'm just wondering, maybe not right away, they're just kind of getting their feet on the ground, but I wonder if we shouldn't show up at one of their meetings and just introduce ourselves. I mean, we've meet in their town hall and they have no clue what we do.
I think that's a good idea, and we've done this with, I called it barnstorming before.
Yeah.
And some municipalities were Oh, they were yawning, but we'll find ways to get their attention, but I'm definitely for that.
Yeah, it's just.
We need to do that.
Thought,
And I wouldn't mind attending if you'd like to attend.
sure.
And I could certainly give them a canned presentation. John makes good ones. I could say, here's what we do for those of you that are uninformed. We'd like to share this with you and what we do. So that's up for consideration and coming up. Good? Yeah. Can we follow through with that? Presentation.
I'll draft a presentation that you and I can review.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Okay. All right. Does anybody have anything more on this? Okay. Very good. Investment report. Okay, Rick,
Okay,
throw some numbers at us.
yeah. Well, I think we had a pretty good year this year. A little over $330,000 in revenues. Just